January 31st, 1857. A blood-curdling scream pierces the night air on Bond Street in Manhattan. By morning, one of New York's most prominent dentists would be found dead in a pool of blood, strangled and stabbed 15 times. But this wasn't just a murder. This was the unraveling of a twisted tale involving greed, lust, forbidden affairs, and one of the most audacious fraud schemes in American legal history. This is the story of the Bond Street murder. Dr. Harvey Burdell came to New York City in 1834 to join his brother John's dental practice. Together, they became wildly successful, catering to members of New York's high society. They even published a dental handbook that became widely respected in medical circles. After 5 years, Harvey struck out on his own. His practice thrived. But dentistry was just the beginning. Harvey made his real fortune through banking and real estate speculation, building considerable wealth. But Harvey Burdell lived a double life. Uptown, he was a respected professional. Downtown, in the Bowery, he was known for gambling in seedy establishments and frequenting brothels. He even provided dental services to prostitutes in his neighborhood, taking payment in ways that weren't exactly monetary. Harvey Burdell was wealthy, successful, and utterly without scruples. And in 1854, he would meet his match. Emma Hempstead was born in Brooklyn in 1818 to a poor but devoutly religious rope maker. From an early age, Emma knew she wanted more out of life. She was beautiful, ambitious, and willing to use whatever means necessary to climb the social ladder. As a teenager, Emma leveraged her beauty and sexuality to secure a marriage to George Cunningham, a man 22 years her senior who had inherited a successful distillery from his father. In 1844, the Cunninghams moved to a fashionable townhouse on Irving Place in Manhattan and became part of upper-middle-class society. Emma had everything she wanted, but it wouldn't last. George Cunningham wasn't the businessman his father had been. By 1846, a series of business failures and foreclosures drove the family back to Brooklyn in disgrace. 5 children were born amid their growing poverty. In desperation, George joined the California Gold Rush in 1849, hoping to restore their fortunes. He failed. He returned to Brooklyn broken and penniless. In 1854, George Cunningham died in poverty. Emma, now 33 and a widow, inherited property and life insurance worth $10,000. It sounds like a lot, but Emma knew it wouldn't last long or provide the lifestyle she craved. Still attractive and cunning, Emma went hunting for another wealthy husband. She had several suitors, but she set her sights on one man in particular, Dr. Harvey Burdell. Harvey Burdell and Emma Cunningham met around 1854 and began a whirlwind courtship. In August, they traveled together to the fashionable resort of Saratoga Springs, a playground for New York's wealthy elite. By fall, Emma discovered she was pregnant. For most women of the era, this would have meant marriage was certain. But Harvey Burdell had other ideas. He persuaded Emma to have an abortion, possibly even performing the procedure himself. Despite this betrayal, their relationship continued. Around this time, Burdell leased Emma the house at 31 Bond Street. She moved in with her 5 children and began running it as a boarding house. Dr. Burdell kept his own room and maintained his dental office on the 2nd floor. Other residents included John Eckel, a tanner, and George Snodgrass, an 18-year-old poet and banjo player. It was an unusual household, to say the least. For a while, things seemed stable, but tensions were building beneath the surface, and by 1857, those tensions would explode. By 1857, the relationship between Emma Cunningham and Harvey Burdell had deteriorated dramatically. Emma was consumed with jealousy over Burdell's 24-year-old cousin, Dimas Hubbard, who was a frequent guest at the house. Emma was also undoubtedly aware of Harvey's affairs with female patients in his dental office. The arguments became frequent and vicious. Burdell stopped eating at Emma's table, preferring to take his meals at the nearby Lafarge house just to avoid her. But the real breaking point came when Emma discovered that Harvey was planning to evict her. He had arranged for a new landlady to take over 31 Bond Street beginning May 1st. According to testimony from one of the maids, Emma's reaction was chilling. When asked about the new landlady, Emma said, "He better be careful. He may not live to sign the papers." It was a threat. And on January 30th, 1857, someone would make good on it. Around 10:30 on the night of January 30th, 1857, a neighbor living at 36 Bond Street heard a blood-curdling cry pierce the darkness. "Murder!" But the scream was quickly cut short. The neighbor couldn't tell where it came from. By the time anyone could investigate, the night had fallen silent again. The next morning, a boy hired to start the fire in Dr. Burdell's office opened the door and discovered a scene of horror. Dr. Harvey Burdell's mutilated body lay face down on the floor in a massive pool of blood. Blood was splattered more than 5 feet up the walls. The body was examined. The doctor had been strangled with a garrote, a strangulation device. But that wasn't all. He had been stabbed 15 times with a long, slender knife. This wasn't just murder. This was overkill. This was rage. News of the murder spread like wildfire through New York City. Throughout the day, massive crowds of morbidly curious onlookers surrounded 31 Bond Street, desperate for any glimpse of the infamous murder house. The coroner was called. An inquest began immediately, and it would last 2 full weeks. What investigators discovered would shock even the jaded residents of New York City. The house was searched top to bottom. Everyone living at 31 Bond Street was questioned extensively, including several very observant maids who had witnessed far more than anyone realized. The investigation revealed the sordid reality of life at 31 Bond Street. Emma Cunningham produced a marriage certificate claiming she was actually married to Harvey Burdell, though Burdell had supposedly requested the marriage be kept secret. A search of George Snodgrass's room uncovered something disturbing: undergarments belonging to Helen Cunningham, Emma's 15-year-old daughter. The nature of their relationship became clear. The maids testified about Burdell's affair with his cousin Dimas Hubbard and Emma's seething anger over it. They also revealed that Emma was having an affair with John Eckel, one of the boarders. Outside witnesses painted an even darker picture. Burdell's former business partner testified that Harvey had asked him to sleep at 31 Bond Street because he feared violence from Emma, John Eckel, George Snodgrass, and Emma's oldest daughter, Augusta. Dimas Hubbard herself testified that her cousin Harvey had planned to end his arrangement with Emma Cunningham and replace her with another landlady. This corroborated the maid's account of Emma's chilling threat: "He better be careful. He may not live to sign the papers." Then came a crucial piece of forensic evidence. The coroner determined that the knife wounds indicated the killer was left-handed. Emma Cunningham was left-handed. Emma Cunningham and John Eckel were charged with murder. George Snodgrass was charged as an accessory. All 3 were taken to the notorious Tombs prison to await trial. Emma Cunningham was not allowed to attend the funeral of her alleged husband. The funeral attracted over 8,000 people, a massive crowd even by New York standards. Everyone wanted to see the infamous Dr. Burdell laid to rest. But Emma was allowed one final visit to pay her last respects. She was taken under guard to view his body before the coffin lid was screwed shut. Witnesses described what happened next. Emma broke down in hysterical tears that everyone present believed were completely authentic. Between sobs, she cried out, "Oh, I wish to God you could speak and tell who done it." It was a performance that would foreshadow her behavior at trial. And it left many wondering, was Emma truly innocent? Or was she simply an incredible actress? May 6th, 1857. The murder trial began, and it was an absolute sensation. Every available inch of space in the courtroom was packed with spectators. Notably, there was an especially high percentage of well-dressed women in attendance, eager to watch the proceedings. The trial of Emma Cunningham lasted only 3 days, surprisingly short compared to the 2-week inquest, but those 3 days would determine whether Emma would hang for murder or walk free. The prosecution's case was essentially a rehash of testimony from the inquest. They told the story now familiar to anyone who read New York City newspapers. Emma's jealousy, her financial desperation, her threats, the fact that she was left-handed like the killer. But the prosecution also had another strategy. They did everything they could to thoroughly destroy Emma Cunningham's reputation. They painted her as a scheming seductress, a woman of loose morals, someone capable of cold-blooded murder. The defense, however, had a different approach. They attacked the circumstantial evidence, pointing out that no one had actually witnessed the murder. They noted that many others had access to the house that night. But most devastatingly, they did a complete character assassination of Harvey Burdell himself. They portrayed him as a man who frequented brothels, who had affairs with his own cousin, the kept mistress of her own blood cousin, as they called Dimas Hubbard. They painted Burdell as a man so vile that numerous people might have wanted him dead. The defense also posed a critical question. If Emma was truly married to Burdell, why would she kill a husband with a steady and substantial income? Murdering him would end her financial security. Though the judge tried his best to suppress negative testimony about Burdell's reputation, the defense did their job well. They had planted reasonable doubt. After deliberations, the jury returned with their verdict: not guilty. Emma Cunningham walked free. John Eckel and George Snodgrass were never tried. But this wasn't the end of Emma's story. In fact, the most audacious part was yet to come. Before the murder trial began, another legal battle was unfolding. Since Harvey Burdell died without a will, the authenticity of Emma's marriage certificate would determine who inherited his considerable estate. Burdell's blood relatives immediately hired Samuel Tilden, a prominent attorney and future presidential candidate, to represent their interests. If Emma's marriage was proven legitimate, she would inherit about 1/3 of the estate. But Emma had a plan to get it all. While still imprisoned in the Tombs awaiting trial, Emma made a stunning announcement. She was pregnant with Harvey Burdell's child. If true, this changed everything. Under the law, a pregnant widow and her unborn child would inherit 100% of the estate, not just 1/3. There was only one problem. Emma Cunningham was not pregnant. After her acquittal, Emma continued the charade. She realized she needed an accomplice to pull it off. She confided in a doctor named Ewell, explaining her scheme. She needed him to supply her with a baby to present as Harvey Burdell's heir. What Emma didn't know was that Dr. Ewell went straight to the district attorney, and told him everything. The district attorney set up an elaborate sting operation. When the time came for Emma to give birth, Dr. Uhl told her he had procured a baby. He claimed it belonged to a woman whose husband had gone to California. Now she planned to join him and needed to give up the baby. In reality, the district attorney had gone to Bellevue Hospital and borrowed a baby from an indigent mother for the operation. Emma, disguised as a Sister of Mercy in full religious habit, met Dr. Uhl and received the baby in a basket. She carried it back to her residence. The ruse was played out in full. Emma pretended to go into labor, screaming behind a closed door for hours to make it sound authentic. Dr. Uhl played his part, acting as her physician. But when Dr. Uhl emerged with the newborn baby, police officers entered the room and arrested Emma Cunningham for fraud. The scheme had failed, and it cost Emma everything. The fraud charges against Emma were eventually dropped. There likely wasn't enough evidence for a conviction under the strict legal standards of the time. But it didn't matter. The fake pregnancy scheme was enough to completely invalidate her claim of marriage to Harvey Birdell in the eyes of the surrogate court. She would receive nothing from his estate. Emma Cunningham, once so close to securing a fortune, ended up with nothing. After ensuring her daughters were taken care of, Emma left New York for California, perhaps hoping to start fresh where no one knew her name. She married again in 1870, but history repeated itself. 13 years later, in 1883, Emma was widowed for the third time. She moved back to New York City, the scene of her greatest scandal. And here, Emma Cunningham died in poverty, the very thing she had spent her entire life trying to escape. She is buried in Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn. Ironically, her grave is located just a few hundred yards from Harvey Birdell's. Even in death, Emma Cunningham could not escape the man whose murder defined her life. So what really happened on that night in January 1857? Did Emma Cunningham murder Harvey Birdell in a fit of jealous rage? Or was she innocent, as the jury decided? The evidence was certainly compelling. Emma had motive: financial desperation and jealousy. She had opportunity. She lived in the house. She had made threats. She was left-handed, matching the killer's profile. But the case was entirely circumstantial. No one witnessed the murder. No murder weapon was ever found. And many other people in that house had their own reasons to want Birdell dead. Perhaps John Eckel killed Birdell to protect his lover Emma. Perhaps George Snodgrass was involved, defending his inappropriate relationship with Emma's young daughter. Perhaps it was someone else entirely, someone with a grudge we'll never know about. The truth is, we may never know for certain what happened at 31 Bond Street on that winter night in 1857. What we do know is that Emma Cunningham's desperate ambition and elaborate schemes made her one of the most fascinating and controversial figures in 19th century American true crime. The Bond Street murder remains one of New York's most sensational, unsolved mysteries. A story of greed, lust, murder, and deception that captivated an entire city. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more historical true crime cases. Let me know in the comments what you think happened. Was Emma guilty or innocent? Thanks for watching.